Sheriff Eddie Cathy had seen darkness before. 20 years in law enforcement hardens you, but standing before reporters, his voice cracked. The details of this murder are indescribable. It's just evil.
Especially when you're a parent, you have children of your own, and you see just the evil that people are capable of. It's just not normal.
What broke this veteran sheriff wasn't just the crime scene photos or the autopsy report. It was the realization that Zaria Jocelyn Burgess had tried 3 times to avoid spending that weekend with her father, and yet she was tortured for 22 hours. This was her father's doing. He called it the best weekend of his life. This is the infuriating story of Zaria Burgess. August 19th, 2019, a Sunday afternoon at the Union County Sheriff's Office. The dispatcher looked up as a man walked in, average height, unkempt beard, hollow eyes. He stood at her desk, unnervingly still. "Can I help you?" she asked. He replied flatly, "I need to turn myself in." The dispatcher began typing, searching for warrants. Nothing appeared under Joshua Lee Burgess. "You won't find anything," he said. "I just killed someone." His voice remained eerily calm as he described exactly where officers would find his daughter's body, how they would find her, what he had done to her. 22 hours of unimaginable torture. 2 specialized officers approached the modest house on Hampton Meadows Road that afternoon. Training prepares you for crime scenes. Nothing prepared them for this. She was displayed like one of Hannibal Lecter's trophies, and she was the killer's daughter. Both officers would later describe this as the most traumatic moment of their careers. One detail haunted them most. Zaria had tried desperately to escape spending that weekend with her father. December 23rd, 2003. A winter day filled with promise. Akeisha Pope, just 16, held her newborn daughter. Beside her, 14-year-old Joshua Burgess stared in wonder, now responsible for a life. They named her Zaria Jocelyn Burgess. She was perfect.
She was just the type of kid that would come in the room or come in the house and say, "Hey, everybody," just wanted to make everybody laugh.
Like many teen relationships, Akeisha and Joshua's burned hot, but brief. By the time Zaria could walk, her parents had separated. They established a custody arrangement, weekends with dad, weekdays with mom. For years, it seemed to work. Akeisha eventually had another child with a different partner. She built a life centered around her children, her church, and her community. The Christ Bible Discipleship Worship Center in Marshville became their spiritual home, where Akeisha found purpose and Zaria found joy in the youth dance team. Joshua struggled to find stability. Jobs came and went. His longest employment was as a truck driver, occasionally taking Zaria along on routes. He battled addiction. He nursed resentments. He joined online groups promoting hatred. Yet no one saw warning signs serious enough to intervene. On Facebook, Joshua crafted the image of a devoted father. "I love this little angel more than anything," he posted with a photo of Zaria. "Nothing beats quality time with my daughter." Friends commented on what a great dad he was. So young, so involved, so loving. Oh, the joy of having a teenage daughter. I'm waiting for her to get her hair done. Would not trade this time for anything. Reading this, you'd be excused for thinking the same. Classmates who saw father and daughter together described them as best friends. They envied Zaria for having such a cool dad. None knew about his felony record for burglary and grand larceny. August 18th, 2019, a Saturday morning. Zaria was 15 and preparing for her sophomore year. She didn't need to go to her dad's. Even more so, she didn't want to. But her mom did not want her home alone, and she was busy with the church that weekend. Zaria texted her best friend. Could she sleep over at her house Saturday night? The friend replied she couldn't. She had early plans Sunday morning. One last attempt. "Mom, can you pick me up Saturday evening from dad's?" Akeisha said no. She was performing until late. It was easier if she picked her up on Sunday afternoon. Those words would haunt Akeisha forever. What Zaria couldn't articulate, what teenagers often can't put into words, was the growing unease she felt around her father. She'd mentioned his temper to friends, how he'd once threatened to leave her on the roadside during a truck route, how visits with him weren't fun anymore. Normal teenage complaints about parents, her friends thought. Nothing to worry about. They were so wrong, it hurts. What happened inside that house over those 22 hours, no one should have to hear, no one should have to imagine. But we owe it to Zaria to acknowledge the truth. Joshua Burgess inflicted prolonged, calculated torture on his daughter. He had planned it meticulously. First, psychological torment, then sexual violence. Finally, the brutal end. From the moment she entered his house until he walked into the sheriff's office the next day, every moment was premeditated. Court documents would later reveal that after hours of torture, he his daughter. Then, as if that weren't enough, he slit her throat. The medical examiner would struggle to maintain professional detachment during testimony. During his eventual confession, Joshua would tell detectives this was the best weekend of his life. The officers who found Zaria's body, the coroner who examined her, the prosecutors who built the case, all would require counseling afterward. Sheriff Cathy told reporters,
Especially when you're a parent, you have children of your own, and you see just the evil that people are capable of. It's just not normal.
nothing about this case was normal.
This is just a case where it's just pure evil.
Our top story, new details in a heartbreaking crime. A 15-year-old girl is dead, and police say her father confessed to killing her.
News spread through Monroe and Union County like wildfire. Neighbors who had played football with Joshua couldn't comprehend it.
Actually, knowing the guy just a little bit, just playing football with him a couple times, stuff like that with all the neighborhood kids, and just crazy, and how sad and tragic that is.
Friends who had praised his parenting were sickened. Classmates who had envied Zaria were devastated.
She was so young, and nobody deserves to leave this world like that, especially by someone that thought that was going to protect them and be there for them.
When something like this happens, people don't process it right away. Some never process it at all. How do you wrap your head around someone you know doing this to their daughter?
Yeah, neighbors here are so stunned by this. Scott and Erica, that 15-year-old girl, Zaria Burgess, was in this neighborhood. As you said, she was visiting her father who lives here, and deputies are telling us that he his daughter and then turned himself in.
35-year-old Joshua Burgess was placed on suicide watch in the smallest cell available. His blank stare and flat affect disturbed even veteran corrections officers. The prosecution announced they would seek the death penalty, something North Carolina hadn't imposed in 16 years. 7 days after her death, hundreds gathered at Christ Bible Discipleship Worship Center, the same church where Akeisha danced, where Zaria had once joined the youth group, where faith had been a cornerstone of their lives. Now it housed her funeral. A public viewing was held from 2 to 3 p.m. on Sunday, August 25th, 2019. They came to say goodbye to a girl who should have been preparing for homecoming, not being lowered into the ground. The obituary was painfully brief, a mere paragraph for a life cut cruelly short. Miss Zaria Jocelyn Burgess, 15 of Monroe, NC, passed away Sunday, August 18, 2019 in Monroe, NC. Such formal, sterile language for such a violent end. Instead of flowers, mourners were asked to make memorial donations to the church in Zaria's name. Some wondered if the money might fund programs to recognize warning signs of domestic violence, to teach children to speak up when something feels wrong, to teach adults to listen.
Deputies say this young girl from Union County, with her entire life ahead of her, was murdered by her own father.
Why? The question tormented everyone who learned about Zaria's death. During multiple interrogations, Joshua gave different explanations. First, he claimed he wanted to hurt Akeisha, a twisted revenge against the mother of his child, though they had separated nearly a decade earlier. Next, he cited lust and control, words that sickened everyone in the room. Union County investigators would later reveal these as the primary motives. Lust, a father's perverted desire for his child. Control, the ultimate power over another human being. A family friend who had seen Joshua days before the murder believed drugs played a role. She recognized the vacant stare and disheveled appearance of meth use. But substances don't create monsters. They just unleash what's already there. The most disturbing theory emerged during trial testimony. Joshua reportedly confessed he was in love with his daughter and couldn't bear the thought of her dating others as she grew older. Those Facebook posts about his joy in watching her grow suddenly took on horrifying new meanings. None of these explanations satisfied the fundamental question: how could a father do this to his child? Perhaps understanding a monster's motive is beside the point. No reason could ever justify what happened to Zaria. 3 years passed between Zaria's and her father's trial. 3 years of legal motions, psychiatric evaluations, and evidence gathering. 3 years during which Akeisha tried to rebuild some semblance of life for herself and her son. The trial was not televised. The evidence was too graphic, too disturbing for public consumption. Joshua's attorneys tried to keep his taped confession from being played in court. They failed. Akeisha sat through it all, hearing the man she had once loved describe, in chilling detail, what he had done to their daughter. She endured it for Zaria. For 3 weeks in the summer of 2022, jurors heard the unimaginable. They saw photos no one should see. They listened to testimony that would haunt them forever. Sheriff Eddie Cathy called Joshua the essence of evil. It took the jury just 3 hours to reach their verdict: guilty on all counts. Joshua Lee Burgess was convicted of first-degree murder, statutory RE, 3 counts of statutory offense, and first-degree sexual exploitation of a minor. During the sentencing phase, the defense argued against the death penalty. They cited Joshua's troubled childhood, his addiction issues, his lack of prior violent offenses, but the jury wasn't swayed. On June 6, 2022, nearly 3 years after Zaria's death, Joshua Lee Burgess was sentenced to death, but closure is a myth. Some wounds never heal. There's an even darker angle to this already sickening case. Internet investigators, disturbed by the incomprehensible nature of Joshua's crimes, began digging into his digital footprint. What they discovered painted a troubling picture of a man whose hatred extended beyond his personal relationships. Zaria was biracial, born to a black mother and a white father. According to testimonies from Zaria's friends, she had confided that she didn't feel accepted by her father's side of the family specifically because of her racial identity. One friend reported that Zaria had expressed feeling uncomfortable around her father's relatives, sensing their disapproval of her mixed heritage. She described subtle but unmistakable signals. No one really thinks a person is capable of such depravity. Some netizens speculated that Joshua's crime might have been some perverse form of initiation or sacrifice to gain standing in a white supremacist or extremist group. While investigators never publicly confirmed such theories, the overlap between Joshua's online activities and his horrific crime against his biracial daughter just can't be ignored. The racial dimension adds yet another layer of betrayal to Zaria's story. Not only was she failed by the person who should have protected her most, but she may have been targeted in part because of her very identity, an identity she received from him. This case is heartbreaking beyond reason already, but what makes it even worse is that Zaria tried 3 times to escape having to spend that weekend with her dad. She was trying to tell us something. We weren't ready to hear it. Zaria's story didn't end with the verdict. It rippled outward, changed things. Lives touched by her absence carry permanent scars. Her classmates graduated with an empty chair. They placed her favorite flowers there, wrote her name in their yearbooks, whispered wishes about the life she should have had. Teachers remember her smile, the potential, the dreams never realized, the college essays never written, the love never found. The system changed, too. Now, when a teen says, "I don't want to go," someone listens, really listens. Social workers dig deeper. Police officers notice more. Judges ask better questions. At Christ Bible Discipleship Worship Center, a scholarship bears her name. Every year, a young person studies child psychology or social work because of Zaria, someone who might save another child. Her death forced hard conversations about race and family courts, about fathers who get second chances while children get none, about a system that values parental rights over children's safety. Joshua exploited these gaps, posted loving tributes online while harboring darkness. The world saw what he wanted them to see, not what Zaria felt. She tried to tell us. 3 separate attempts to avoid that weekend. For her mother, Akeisha, life split in 2, before and after. She visits the cemetery on December 23rd each year, stays home surrounded by photos on August 18th. The pain doesn't shrink, it just changes shape. On birthdays, she releases butterflies, delicate creatures that transform and soar, everything Zaria should have been allowed to become. Evil exists. We can't explain away what Joshua did with psychology or sociology. He planned for days, executed over 22 deliberate hours, confessed without remorse. This doesn't absolve us of responsibility. It demands more from us. Listen harder when children seem uneasy. Watch closer when adults post disturbing content. Take seriously the small warnings that signal danger. Blood ties don't guarantee protection. Sometimes they hide the greatest threats. Small changes, invisible shifts, but they might save a life. Remember her name, not just how she died, but how she lived. Remember Zaria Jocelyn Burgess. Was Zaria's death preventable? Should parents have absolute custody rights despite warning signs? Can our system truly protect children from the monsters who claim to love them? I need your voice in this conversation. Share your thoughts below on how we can better protect our children from those meant to protect them. If Zaria's story moved you, please like and subscribe to support our mission of bringing these crucial stories to light. Turn on notifications so you don't miss our next investigation. Together, we can ensure Zaria didn't die in vain.